Banning all tobacco products on school grounds is set to take effect next year.
Wear your seatbelt when you hit the roads to save your life. A girl died at an unlicensed daycare in Parker.
The 1980s were a wild time. Big hair, neon fashion, and many things you could do that would land you in serious trouble today. From questionable driving habits to stuff you could buy over the counter with no ID, the rules were way looser back then. But were we just more laid back, or were we playing with fire? Let's take a trip back in time and count down 25 things illegal today, but completely normal in the 1980s. Imagine a world where a trip to the hardware store meant an entire box of dynamite was as accessible as a bag of nails. In the 1980s, buying dynamite was a routine errand for farmers, clearing land for miners to blast rock, and even hobbyists with questionable ideas. No government checks or paperwork were required. Just a nod from the clerk and cash in hand. This widespread availability made it easy for anyone to get on explosive material, leading to impressive construction feats and unexpected accidents. Such casual access to danger seems almost unimaginable today. Yet, in that era of relative freedom, few questioned the risks until the consequences became too explosive to ignore.
That's crazy.
Picture a time when cigarette vending machines lined the streets, found in bars, restaurants, and even gas stations. In the 1980s, these machines made smoking accessible with a simple insertion of a couple of quarters, and no ID or age verification was required. This ease of access meant that teenagers and adults could quickly procure a pack without hassle. The devices, humming with mechanical precision, symbolized a culture where smoking was as ubiquitous as breathing. However, with rising health concerns and a shift in public attitudes, regulations tightened, and these machines vanished almost overnight. Strict controls replaced the allure of instant gratification, yet questions remained about how freely dangerous habits once roamed. Brace yourself now for a surprising twist that follows next.
Good shot there.
According to the Spokane County Health Department, roughly 25% of high school students in Washington state smoke cigarettes.
Schools once embraced smoking in a way that defies modern imagination. In the 1980s, some high schools even had designated areas where students could puff away during breaks, a norm that shocks today's sensibilities. Classrooms occasionally wafted with the scent of tobacco as teachers and students shared the habit without question. Such permissiveness resulted from when health risks were less understood and the culture prized rebellion over regulation. This casual attitude faded as public health campaigns and stricter school policies took hold, fundamentally reshaping what was acceptable on school grounds.
Pace says parents who spanked their child reported their kids were more aggressive, biting, hitting, and kicking other kids.
Back in the 80s, spanking was just a normal part of discipline. Many parents believed it was the best way to teach kids right from wrong, whether it was a slap on the backside, a whack with a wooden spoon, or even the dreaded belt. Schools weren't different. Some teachers even had paddles on the wall as a warning, but times have changed. Today, spanking is widely discouraged, with research showing it can lead to an increased aggression, anxiety, and even long-term emotional damage. In many places, it's outright illegal, with laws protecting children from physical punishment. Modern parenting focuses more on communication and positive reinforcement. While older generations may argue, "It never did me any harm," experts today say there are far better ways to raise respectful, well-behaved kids without the fear of a spanking.
All right. We're riding in the bed of a truck.
Yep.
In our neighborhood, of course.
Yes.
In a bygone era of summer escapades, riding in the back of a pickup truck was an adventure embraced by many. In the 1980s, the truck bed was a makeshift playground where wind-tossed hair, laughter, and the thrill of open-air freedom reigned supreme. Without modern safety measures like seatbelts, children and teenagers eagerly welcomed the adrenaline rush as the truck bounced along dusty roads. The experience offered a wild sense of independence, a daring escape from everyday routine, and an opportunity to feel truly alive. Parents, too, often shrugged off concerns, regarding it as harmless fun and a cherished rite of passage. However, as accident statistics mounted and safety became paramount, regulations eventually curtailed this once beloved tradition, rendering it a nostalgic yet perilous relic of the past and timeless memory.
Janet, small pack, king size.
For who?
Ashley. Hello, Ashley. How are you?
Good, Mr. Kim. But
She's buying for her mommy.
I have a note.
Envision a different era when children were entrusted with the simple task of purchasing cigarettes. In the 1980s, it was common practice for parents to send their kids on errands that would now seem unthinkable. A short walk to the local store to pick up a pack of cigarettes was as ordinary as grabbing milk. The absence of stringent ID checks allowed these young messengers to complete their missions without interruption. The act, seen as a rite of passage or a way to instill responsibility, belied the inherent risks of early exposure to tobacco. Such practices faded away as awareness of health hazards and child safety grew, prompting new laws.
Every Friday night for 2 months now, Greeley has allowed open containers here on 9th Street.
And we haven't had a single problem, not one issue. It's been a wonderful crowd.
In the 1980s, walking down the street with a bottle or a can in hand was as normal as picking up groceries. People enjoyed a leisurely drink on a warm summer day without worrying about laws. A stroll in town often meant a carefree sip while chatting with friends. This casual attitude toward public drinking was a staple of the era, reflecting a more relaxed view of alcohol use in public spaces. Over time, concerns about public safety and unruly behavior led to the introduction of open containing laws, changing the way cities manage drinking in public. Nowadays, enjoying a beverage outside has strict rules, transforming a once ordinary habit into a risky act. A simpler time now seems lost.
All tobacco filter, all tobacco taste. Perfect.
Television cigarette ads once dominated the airwaves, making smoking look cool and fun to everyone. In the 1980s, commercials featured smooth-talking actors and catchy jingles that made lighting up seem like a mark of maturity and style. These ads appeared during every popular show, from action-packed dramas to family comedies, creating a culture where cigarettes were part of daily life. Over time, research linked smoking to serious health risks, and public opinion shifted dramatically. Laws were introduced to ban these ads, changing how cigarettes were marketed forever. That once lively era of persuasive commercials gave way to strict regulations and cautionary tales about tobacco use. The shift in advertising rules left a mark on society, proving that change is powerful.
What I have here just looks like a generic rock, but it's actually kind of dangerous. This is because all the white stuff is a bunch of asbestos, which is notorious for causing lung cancer.
In the 1980s, asbestos was widely used in building construction and home products without much thought. The mineral, prized for its heat resistance and strength, was found in insulation, roofing, and everyday appliances. Many people were unaware of the long-term dangers, as the harmful effects of asbestos exposure were not yet fully understood. Over time, evidence linked the material to serious health issues, including lung diseases and cancer. This growing awareness led to strict regulations and an eventual ban on unregulated asbestos use. What was once seen as a miracle material became a hazardous relic of a less informed era. Changes like these remind society how safety standards evolve with discoveries. Today, strict asbestos controls are a clear example of progress made through study and regulation.
Cut lead by 91%. What effect will this have on people with older cars and engines that need high octane?
In the 1980s, leaded gasoline was a common fuel choice that powered millions of cars and trucks. It added extra performance and made engines run smoothly, so it was widely used without much question. However, the toxic lead particles released into the air began to show dangerous effects on health and the environment. Over time, scientific studies revealed that leaded gasoline contributed to air pollution and could harm brain development in children. As a result, governments worldwide banned its use, pushing industries to switch to cleaner alternatives. What was once an accepted standard in fuel technology is now a relic of the past, marking a significant shift towards environmental awareness and public health.
What's going on? They knew that this man was making fireworks in his home.
In the 1980s, making fireworks at home was a daring, almost routine hobby for many thrill seekers. People mix chemicals in their garages to create colorful explosions to light up the sky during celebrations. The thrill of crafting their own display added a sense of adventure and creativity to the experience. Neighbors often marveled at the burst of light and sound, unaware of the dangers hidden behind the spectacle. However, the risks of accidental fires and serious injuries eventually coincided with this practice. Laws were enacted to curb homemade fireworks, ensuring public safety over personal entertainment. What was once an exciting, hands-on way to celebrate became a forbidden act due to safety concerns. This shift reminds everyone that actual fun must always be balanced with caution.
A pirate radio station here in Austin facing a big fine after a federal crackdown. The Federal Communications Commission says a central Austin apartment with this 50-foot tower outside has been illegally operated.
In the 1980s, pirate radio stations buzzed with an uncensored, rebellious music and opinions. These unlicensed broadcasters set up makeshift studios in basements and garages, bypassing government rules. Their raw energy and edgy playlist attracted devoted listeners who craved something different from mainstream radio. Often, these stations operated in secrecy, dodging law enforcement while igniting a sense of freedom and counterculture. However, the charm of pirate radio came with risks, as authorities eventually cracked down on illegal broadcasts. The once vibrant underground scene faded, replaced by strict licensing laws and more controlled media channels. Yet the legacy of pirate radio still echoes in today's independent and daring music ventures. This rebellious era of off-the-grid broadcasting powerfully reminds everyone that creativity often truly thrives in the face of adversity.
Leaders in a local city vote no to indoor smoking for private businesses, as Local 12's Christian Hauser shows us. At least
in the 1980s, indoor dining was synonymous with a hazy atmosphere saturated with cigarette smoke, where restaurants and bars welcomed smoking as an essential part of their ambiance. Patrons hardly batted an eye at the pervasive haze, accepting the smoky air as part of the dining experience. However, as mounting research highlighted the grave dangers of secondhand smoke, public health reforms began reshaping social norms. Today, strict laws ban indoor smoking in most public spaces, transforming once smoke-filled venues into clean, healthier environments. This shift from nostalgic, hazy dining rooms to vibrant, smoke-free establishments vividly illustrates how cultural practices can change overnight. As regulations cleared the air indoors, other once taken for granted everyday habits also underwent radical makeovers. These progressive changes continue to shape our modern lifestyle and ensure public well-being.
For young children, seniors, or pregnant women, those risks are higher and potentially deadly.
Once a common grocery sight in the 80s, raw milk was prized for its natural appeal and creamy taste. Farmers sold it freely, and many believed it was healthier than its processed cousin. However, rising concerns over harmful bacteria led to stricter food safety laws. Today, most states ban the sale of unpasteurized milk to protect consumers from serious illnesses like E. coli and salmonella. This transformation from trusted tradition to regulated risk underscores society's growing focus on public health.
Exposure to these chemicals can cause a myriad of health problems. Pesticide poisoning is a more immediate reaction, most commonly caused by occupational use or accidental ingestion.
In the 1980s, many dangerous pesticides were used without proper restrictions, making them a standard part of daily farming and gardening routines. These chemicals were sprayed generously on crops and lawns, often without considering long-term health effects. At the time, the focus was on maximizing yields and keeping pests at bay, with little awareness of environmental or human harm. As scientific research advanced, links between these pesticides and various illnesses emerged, leading to widespread concern. Government stepped in to ban or tightly control many of these hazardous substances. What was once seen as a simple solution for pest control is now remembered as a risky practice with lasting consequences. The journey from everyday use to strict regulation reveals a lot about changing safety standards. This change shows why caution matters.
And advertise on social media sites like Facebook and Nextdoor, claiming to provide quality childcare close to home.
In the 1980s, unlicensed daycare operations were daily, with many families relying on informal childcare arrangements. Neighbors and relatives often stepped in to watch over little ones, and ad hoc setups operated without official oversight. This casual approach to child care was born out of necessity and community spirit, with trust being the key factor. However, as awareness of child safety grew and regulations tightened, these informal arrangements were deemed too risky. Laws were established to protect children by enforcing strict licensing requirements for all daycare providers. What was once seen as a simple, neighborly favor gradually transformed into a matter of legal obligation, reflecting society's growing focus on ensuring every child's well-being. Strict licensing laws ensure that quality child care is safe, structured, and fully meets modern standards.
There are people who have to have that animal or that butterfly, that insect. That's what they have to have. And if they've got the cash and they find the right individual, that person is more than happy to.
In the 1980s, exotic pet smuggling was more common than many realize, with unusual animals finding their way into homes through secretive channels. Rare reptiles, colorful birds, and even small mammals were traded with little oversight. The practice was driven by a desire for uniqueness and the thrill of owning something out of the ordinary. However, as wildlife conservation became a priority and the dangers of invasive species were understood, laws tightened around the trade. Authorities cracked down on illegal smuggling to protect both animals and ecosystems. Once a wild and unchecked hobby, exotic pet ownership now faces strict regulations to preserve nature and keep endangered species safe. Today, enhanced laws and global cooperation have turned the secret trade into a heavily monitored, nearly impossible endeavor.
California Highway Patrol officers won't be stopping cars just for violations of the new seatbelt law. That will be just one more thing they'll look for when they pull a car over for other reasons.
Back then, many drivers and passengers skipped buckling up because seatbelt use was neither widely enforced nor considered essential. Even as accident rates soared, this casual disregard persisted. Over time, research demonstrated that wearing a seatbelt drastically reduced the risk of severe injuries and fatalities in collisions. In response, governments enacted strict laws mandating seatbelt use, with police issuing fines for non-compliance. What was once a personal choice quickly became a legal requirement. Today, this simple safety measure saves countless lives every year. Meanwhile, as automotive technology advanced and vehicles evolved into safer spaces, road regulations tightened further, reinforcing the importance of every occupant's commitment to wearing a seatbelt. This evolution has transformed driving into a much safer experience.
Lead-based paint has been banned since 1978, but when old buildings crumble, layers of lead paint can surface. That's why Nassau officials are going public with a warning.
Up next, a change in home construction practices led to a significant public health breakthrough. During the 1980s, lead-based paint was a standard fixture in home decor, prized for its durability and vibrant colors. Families lived with it daily, unaware of the toxic legacy it would leave behind. Eventually, studies exposed lead poisoning's damaging effects, especially in children, prompting sweeping bans on its use in residential buildings. Modern homes now feature safer alternatives, and old properties undergo costly remediation. This stark shift from a decorative norm to a dangerous hazard marks a significant public health milestone.
45-gallon drum garbage incinerators. Well, nobody burns garbage anymore, but we do have a lot of excess little scraps of wood.
In many 80s neighborhoods, burning household trash in backyard incinerators was a common, if not quirky, method for waste disposal. Families lit piles of refuse on their property, often without fully grasping the environmental or health impacts. Over time, concerns about air pollution and toxic emissions led to stricter environmental regulations. Today, backyard incineration is banned in most urban and suburban areas to protect air quality and community health. This shift from a practical, if messy, solution to an environmental hazard reflects broader changes in waste management. With the smoke cleared from our yards, another overlooked safety risk from the past is waiting in the wings.
This is protection that you can't do without, because all machinery, regardless of its size or speed, can present hazards.
In the 80s, factories and workshops often operated with minimal safety features. Machines without proper guards were standard, as production speed and cost savings took priority over worker safety. This lax environment led to numerous accidents and injuries. As labor laws tightened and safety research advanced, regulations mandated the installation of protective guards on machinery. Today, such oversight is a non-negotiable, and failure to comply can lead to heavy fines or shutdowns. This evolution from hazardous workspaces to regulated, safer environments underscores the value of modern safety standards. Now, shifting from the realm of industry, another personal care practice has also seen dramatic legal change.
To get under this could be as restricted as buying a pack of cigarettes.
I think it should be the parents' choice until they're 18. When they're 18, they can do what they want.
In the 80s, tanning salons were open to anyone, including minors, as a quick way to achieve that sun-kissed glow. The long-term risks of UV exposure were not fully understood, and regulations were nearly non-existent. Over time, research linked excessive UV exposure to skin cancer and premature aging, prompting many states to ban tanning for minors. Today, strict age regulations and safety guidelines are in place to protect young skin from harmful rays. This change reflects a broader shift toward preventative health measures in beauty practices.
Michael Johnson's sound system on wheels is so powerful, the gas cap cover bounces with the beat.
In the 1980s, blasting high-decibel music from car stereo systems was a badge of honor, a sign of individuality and style. Drivers cranked up their sound systems without regard for noise ordinances or community peace. However, as concerns grew over noise pollution and public disturbances, local laws clamped down on excessively loud vehicles. Today, many jurisdictions impose strict decibel limits, and violators risk fines and penalties. This evolution shows how what was once a personal expression of freedom has become a regulated public nuisance. In the 80s, many cyclists, especially youngsters, rode their bikes freely without helmets. The open road spirit meant little attention was paid to head protection, and over time, research revealed the serious risks of head injuries and accidents. Governments responded with helmet laws, especially for minors, turning a carefree ride into a safety-conscious activity. Today, helmet use is enforced in many areas, and failure to comply can lead to fines. This change protects lives and marks a broader cultural shift toward valuing personal safety.
Do you have any of these products at your home? They can certainly make any chore easier, and correctly disposing of them doesn't have to be another chore, thanks to Riverside County's Household Hazardous Waste Disposal Program.
During the 80s, disposing of household chemicals, from cleaning agents to batteries, was often done carelessly. Many families simply tossed hazardous materials in regular trash bins, unaware of the long-term environmental damage. Over time, the harmful effects on soil and water sparked public outcry and tighter regulations. Today, proper disposal of hazardous waste is strictly enforced, with designated collection sites and clear guidelines to protect communities and nature. This change illustrates how increased environmental awareness can reshape everyday habits.